Hi, I'm Dynasty Ireland, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hot Seat.
Yes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. And today, hey, we got him back. I think this has been like the third time we've been on here. I think we got Rich at Dynasty Island over on Twitter, if you're not following already, back on the show to talk some 2023 rookies. Rich, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for having me on. So, I guess my match ball's in the post, is it? Third appearance?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Coming out signed, sealed, the whole lot.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. Love coming on and chatting with you. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and thanks everyone, for listening along. And if you are new here over on YouTube, wherever you're listening, all of that good stuff like the liking and subscribing and the bell. The bell. I'm not too fussed for the bell, to be honest, guys. You don't have to click that if you don't want to, but the like and subscribe, that'd be absolutely lovely. Yeah, and the bell is an extra thing if you want to do it. So thanks for joining, and we're going to get into some chat here about some 2023 rookies with Rich, and he's going to start it off actually with just some general hints and tips actually about the dynasty process and how it's doing. Could be linked to rookies, could be linked to, you can apply to other things as well. So Rich, you got 2 tips for us today, I think. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I guess you could probably take these tips for startups and kind of general kind of drafting, but I've tried to make them slightly rookie specific. So my first one is draft for talent, trade for need. I feel like I find myself saying this all the time. I think don't try and get too cute when you're looking at a draft board. Don't say, "Oh, I really need a QB. I'm going to take a QB, reach up and get a QB here," even though the values at running back or wide receiver or whatever. I think take the best player available at all times, and then make the necessary moves to go and get that need addressed later down the road. Never reach up and give up value just to go and answer a positional need as such.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect tip, and that's a lot of the times I always like to say you can't win yourself like a championship in a draft, but you can definitely lose it. And if you're like reaching for players and like looking for, like to fill a position like that, that is a way you can quickly kind of lose out on a lot of value. And yeah, I think start things properly by getting the best players available, definitely. So I love that as a first tip. And you got a second tip for us as well?
Yeah, so it's a fairly simple one. Is do your research. Again, this can be taken to all of fantasy, all of dynasty, but specifically with rookies, don't just rely on at your favorite analyst set of rookie ranks. Make sure you understand why they've ranked certain ways. Why there's players ranked there. It might be that somebody's running back 9 versus their running back 10. Running back 9 might be a really safe kind of plodder that's never going to be more than a running back 3 type, but running back 10 might be that boom bust guy that they don't think is gonna hit but has the chance, and actually your roster might need that kind of boom bust type. So do the research, find out what the players are. Chances are if someone's putting out rankings and things like that, they're putting out articles explaining that, they're producing podcasts, YouTube shows, whatever. Don't just sit and copy a set of rankings. Make sure you're understanding the thought, the process, the players behind those ranks.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And try and listen to as many people as possible. I've been doing like a weekly kind of show where I'm like getting the ADP of like lots of rookie mock drafts from around like the industry. It's so different. Like it's actually unbelievable. Like apart from Bijan Robinson, but like the depth of everybody else and like where they're going is like 5-6 places difference, which is huge. It's like the difference between an early and mid or late pick. Like it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't just take ranks that are out there now as gospel. This time a year ago, Malik Willis was the 101, Traylon Burks was the 102. a lot's going to change over the next month. I see far too many people go to me, right, so I've got the 103, so that's CJ Stroud. What do you think I should do after that? And it's like, no. A lot's going to change over the next month. A lot's going to change in 3 months' time when you're drafting. Don't make those decisions now.
Yeah, absolutely agree, and love those two tips. And for anyone listening, if you want more tips from Mitch, make sure you're heading over to the Fantasy Sanctuary on YouTube. By the way, filled with loads of hints and tips. I think he even did like a 10 tips to like win like right away. You've done loads of stuff like that. It's a channel filled with great stuff. So if you're not already, definitely head over there for sure. So we're gonna get into the mock draft now, Rich. That's the real meat of the show. So we'll pull up our mock draft board here. 12 rounds, super flex. You're going to make every single pick, all right? And we're just going to go through them just one by one. Some of them we can chat a bit more about. Others we can kind of skip over, just depending on how much you want to say about them. And we'll start with the 101. Even though it's super flex, I think consensus is the 101. Is that the same that you have as well?
Yeah, it feels ridiculous. Let's not overcomplicate things. He's a top 5 pick in 1 QB startups. He's a first round pick in Superflex startups. I've got him in my rookie model. He's a 99th percentile prospect. So he's the best prospect in my model since second best prospect since 2012. The only player who's better is Saquon Barkley, and a lot of that is because he was a second overall pick.
Yeah. So Bijan Robinson definitely getting locked in. Now, what's interesting is actually, I find the most interesting thing about Bijan is actually where is he going to go in the NFL draft? Because he's going to go somewhere and going to be great. But obviously Saquon went so high all the way back then. Like I don't know how many years ago was Saquon drafted? Like
4 or 5 years ago, wasn't he? Yeah,
4 or 5 years ago.
2018 draft, I think.
Do you think teams have been burned by early pick running backs too often to take Bijan early, or is someone just going to go, I'm going to take him? Like, will he go in the top 15 even?
I think there's potential. I think that, to me, I think that a lot of the talk in the NFL is that running backs are undervalued. And in terms of overvalued, you should never spend capital on a running back. And I agree. I don't think you should ever pay a running back big money. But to me, I think drafting a running back in the first round, you're getting the best 5 years of their career in terms of their production. You're getting that 5 years to use them, and then you can kind of discard them. I'd be more against spending 18, 20 million to go and pay Saquon Barkley as a free agent this year than I would be to draft Bijan Robinson in the top. I'd feel more comfortable if I can get him in the 20s, but I don't know if he's going to last that long. So I think that sort of teens is his sweet spot this year. Yeah,
I think so as well. I'm slightly terrified he goes to the Eagles because they don't need any more weapons. I'm just a little bit afraid that they just go screw it and take him on. But hopefully,
I see people talk about the Eagles as a great landing spot, and I kind of get it because good offensive line, mobile quarterback. But the thing that makes Bijan so incredible is the receiving work, and Jalen Hurts doesn't check the ball down much. So I wouldn't see the Eagles as the best landing spot out there.
Yeah, no, I think for his fantasy, that would be bad. I'm just, speaking in broad NFL terms because that would be. Although actually, we could talk as well fantasy wise. Anything like on that 1 yard line, he's not getting a carry, right? Because they can just do that impossible to stop move. So maybe he'll eat into his touchdowns as well.
I reckon that's going to get outlawed this offseason. So they need to come up with a new one.
I think that's so rubbish for them, right? Because they're like, you're too good. You're too good at that. It's like everyone else can do it, and no one else can.
They never bothered outlawing it, QB sneak, when Brady was converting 70-80% for the last 20 years. But because Jalen Hurts was doing it, now it gets outlawed.
Yeah, exactly. Not very fair. Per Jalen. So anyway, Bijan definitely a lock in at 1-1 then. So this is kind of where the real draft begins, right? So who's going in your 102 position?
So this is probably a little bit chalky. Bryce Young he's what, 4 inches away from being classed as a generational quarterback. I think that if he's 6'1", 6'2", I think we're talking about him as Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck. He is incredible in terms of every single aspect of playing the quarterback position. The problem is that I think he's probably 5'9". I think he's going to weigh in over 200 pounds this weekend,
Oh, he
because I think
needs
he's
to.
not gonna do anything at the combine other than weigh in, basically, and then he'll probably drop £15 for his pro day when he does all the workouts. But yeah, he's small and he's skinny, and that's a slight concern. But apart from that, I've got no question marks.
Yeah, so Bryce Young locked in at pick 102. And for him, what would you say, like if you were to separate like one thing about Bryce Young, what do you think is like his best attribute that he has?
I think it's his brain. I think his ability to read the game pre-snap, both pre-snap and post-snap. I think he thinks the game at an elite level. I was reading an article this week that was talking about basically he would come into film session on the Monday with ideas of basically how to break down the defense, plays they should be running, things like that. And quite often they'd be incorporated into the game plan that week, because he'd finish playing on Saturday and then he'd spend all day Sunday basically breaking down film before practice on the Monday. And that, to me, you can see that on the field, because it's the closest thing that we've seen to one of those traditional pocket passers in the NFL in college. You don't often see a quarterback being able to make those reads as quickly as he does and distribute the ball as well as he does. Normally it's the defense shows you a look and the quarterback's looking across the sideline going to the coach, right, what play are we calling now? Are we checking it or what? Whereas, he's fantastic. And the underrated thing about him is that he is an absolute playmaker. He's not a pocket passer. He can get out of the pocket. He can extend plays. He is great outside of structure. Yes, the size is a concern. And, when you're getting outside the safety of the pocket, does that mean he's going to expose himself to more hits and things like that? But from an intangibles, an arm talent, playing the quarterback position, he's as good a prospect as I've ever watched. It's literally height and weight is the only concern, which sounds so ridiculous when talking about play.
Yeah, and you're kind of hoping then, for someone that is, intelligence is way up there in his, best attributes, that he himself is going to realize, like, I cannot get hit by these guys. Like, I'm not big enough. I'm not, strong enough to take hits from some of these monsters running at me. So he might come up with ways for himself to avoid that. I mean, it does depend where if he goes to the Texans, it's obviously a bit scary because, the quarterbacks can get at there. But yeah, I think hopefully he'll be smart enough to figure it out. So do you think there is a big gap then between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, who's the second quarterback in most people's eyes? He might not be your second quarterback, though.
I was going to say, maybe my next quarterback might answer that question. I think, are we talking NFL or fantasy there?
Ooh, good question. Let's go fantasy. We're a dynasty show. Let's go fantasy to start with, and then you can add in some NFL as well.
So yeah, I think the question I have with Stroud is I think he's the most accurate quarterback of anyone in this class. Yeah. The issue I have is that I don't know how good he is at reading, and deciding what's open, because far too often you watch that Ohio State offense and he basically sits back in the pocket and goes, I'm going to stare at this elite wide receiver, wait for him to get open, and then throw him the ball. And there's no ability for him. I didn't see enough of him going 1 to 2 to 3.
Yeah.
I think there's also a question about his ability to create outside of structure. We saw it in that Georgia game where he was incredible. Yeah. And, he showed what he could do in that. But why hasn't he done that for the rest of his career? Why is it a one-game thing? If you told me that's the CJ Stroud that we're going to get week in, week out at the NFL level, then I'd probably be a lot higher on him. But is that the quarterback we're going to get, or is it going to be the rest of his career? Like, I have serious concerns about Stroud enough that he's not my 103.
Ooh, I love that. That's a little teaser, right? So then we're going to have to find out who is the 103 then.
So look, at this point, okay, I'm shooting purely for upside. Okay, I think that Bijan is in interior zone. I think that you can say Bryce Young's in interior zone. For me, I think I had concerns about this player because I didn't think that he was going to get the draft capital. I'm now convinced that he's going to be a top 10 pick. I'd be shocked now if he fell outside the top 7. But I think Anthony Richardson
Yeah.
is got to be a lock. If you're telling me that he's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, I know that he's going to get the opportunity to play. I have some serious concerns about his mechanics and his footwork, and I think he's the player I'm most fascinated to watch at the combine this week, because I think if he's tightened up his mechanics and his footwork and it improves his accuracy, I think teams are going to fall in love with him. Yeah. There's, he walks in, if he is the quarterback that we hope he could be, he's the only player in this entire draft that I think you could argue you should take at 101 over Bijan Robinson, because his ceiling is higher than anyone else in this draft, because his ceiling is quarterback 1 overall.
Yeah.
And yes, don't get me wrong, the floor is out of the league in 2 years. Like, there is the widest range of outcomes you could ever believe.
It's true.
But Bryce Young's incredible. Bryce Young's amazing. But I don't think Bryce Young's ever going to be a top 3 to 5 quarterback in terms of fantasy, because he doesn't have that rushing production. He doesn't have that, elite athleticism. Don't get me wrong, he's a great athlete, but he's not Anthony Richardson. Yeah. No. Anthony Richardson has got, the size, the mobility. He's Cam Newton, not as big as Cam Newton, but he's Cam Newton, but fast.
Yeah.
And if he is everything he could be, sky's the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's an interesting one. Like, I think you might be right. He might end up going so early that this isn't actually an option for him. But you're almost wanting him to go somewhere where he can sit for a year and learn and improve. Like, he's not going to go there. But someone like the Vikings, right? If he went and sat behind a Kirk Cousins and learned the trade and improved and smoothed out some of the wrinkles in his game, that would be awesome. But if he goes top 10, he's going to play right away.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions at 6 makes too much sense. Yeah. Jared Goff, this is probably his last year with Detroit. I know Detroit fans don't want to admit it, but he's probably on his way out after this year.
Yeah.
If Jared Goff is the perfect bridge quarterback, he can help keep the Lions competitive. It's the Alex Smith final year in Kansas City handing over to Patrick Mahomes. Now, that's not me saying Anthony Richardson's Patrick Mahomes, but Jared Goff is going to have this offense as probably a top 10 unit this year.
Yeah.
Now, the Lions can continue to build, continue to be competitive, whilst allowing Anthony Richardson that time to sit there and grow. And I think that, that makes too much sense. Could the Seahawks do something similar with Geno Smith? Are they going to tag him, draft Richardson? There's teams in the top 10 that it makes too much sense not to. Could the Raiders do it? Jarrett Stidham. Okay, he's not in Jared Goff, Geno Smith range, but could he keep them ticking over for 6 to 12 games until Richardson's ready to take over? I think that if you're saying to me, I'm drafting purely for upside, then Richardson should probably be your 101 pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked at all if he starts and, at the end of the year, you look at the points tally and Richardson scored way more because quarterbacks score more points, right? If Richardson ended up scoring more points than Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you've also got to look at it. Bijan Robinson's career lifespan, we're talking probably, 6 years in terms of fantasy? Yeah. Anthony Richardson, if he hits, you're talking worst case scenario is what's Cam Newton? He was 2011, so he was 11 years career, wasn't he? So, that's a double the lifespan of a running back. Right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. He's the most fascinating guy to keep an eye on going forward, definitely. So Anthony Richardson going off at 103 there. So then who's up next at 104?
104, I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs. I think the problem with he's got is that he's in the same class as Bijan Robinson. I think he's an elite prospect. He's a 90th percentile prospect for me. To give you some context, that would put him ahead of Kenneth Walker. That would put him ahead of Najee Harris as prospects as they were coming out.
Okay.
I think he's got potential to sneak into the late first in the NFL draft. I think he is an incredible receiving back. He is so smooth with the ball in his hands. yes, he's not going to be a carry the ball between the tackles 20 times a game, but I've got very few concerns about him as a prospect. And I think he's going to be a probably Dynasty RB1 as soon as this time next year, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, just that receiving alone. Did he end up with over 1,000 yards receiving last year? Is that like, or in his college career, maybe, was it? But he's a great receiving back for sure, which is just, you know, if you're playing in PPR, forget about it, right? That's just dynasty gold.
Yeah, so he had 44 receptions for 444 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, in his career, he was averaging 12 yards a reception, which is, you know, that's mad for a running back.
He must have had 1,000 yards in his college career. That must be the stat I was thinking of. Maybe overall he had 1,000 yards or
he's
something
about
along those lines.
about 1,400 total, I think.
Nice. That's for a running back. Gotta love that. So Jahmyr Gibbs locked in at 2 at your second running back. Sorry, at 104. Who's coming in at 105?
So 105. This is probably the guy that most people would take at 103. It's CJ Stroud.
Yeah,
I like him. I think he does a lot of good. I think he's, you know, as said, the most accurate quarterback in this draft. I've got some concerns. I've got some question marks, but I think he's going to be he's the type of player that's probably going to be a very different type of player, but like a Kirk Cousins, where he's just a plug and play QB2. You don't feel great about having him, but you know, he just keeps things ticking along. And I think that's probably where he's going to settle for the rest of his kind of dynasty career.
Yeah. So do you know about you kind of touched on there that, you know, that he's obviously got awesome, you know, weapons around him. Is there, I'm asking you because I know you love, like, you're into your stats and all of this. I don't know if it exists. Is there like a stat that exists where it's like, it's an accurate throw, not like a good catch? Like, it's not just he's chucking it to Marvin Harrison and Marvin Harrison can outmuscle someone and catch it. Is there like a stat where it's like, no, that was actually a good throw rather than a good catch?
That's a really good question. I don't know really. I mean, PFF do adjusted completion percentage. I mean, completion percentage over expectation. That's probably about as close as you can get to that in terms of, you know, it's taking what the average quarterback would complete in those situations, and if he's completing a high, if he's got a high completion percentage over expectation, then that, you know, that's suggesting that he's a more accurate quarterback than average, quite frankly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that because I've been trying to find a stat like that. I just can't find it anywhere. But yeah, CJ Stroud, still a good prospect. And yeah, if you're at 105 and you got Stroud, I'm sure you'd be pretty happy with that. And 106, then who's going there?
So this is JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. To me, anywhere from 103 to this 106 is one big tier. Those 4 prospects, Richardson, Gibbs, JSN, Stroud, I could pretty much put in any order. They're pretty much interchangeable. Look, JSN, I think the knock on him is that he's only a slot receiver and he only produced in 1 year of college. Obviously, he's had, you know, the hamstring issue that lingered, which always causes some concerns. But I think that the knocks are pretty much wrong, if I can be brutally honest. I think that he, to me, is a prototypical X in terms of the way he runs routes. I've got no concerns about him transition to that at the next level. I think now he's a different prospect to Justin Jefferson, but we heard the same things about Justin Jefferson. You know, he only played slot in LSU. He's not going to be able to play on the outside in the NFL. I think Smith and Jigba's got the release package, got the route running talent that he's going to be able to play outside at the next level. I think there's a question mark about the speed. I think if he can run in the 4.4s, I think he's the first wide receiver drafted in the NFL draft and should be the first wide receiver drafted in rookie drafts. If he's running in the 4.5s, 4.6s, then I think that's probably going to knock him. And I think he then falls to maybe a second round pick, which then, you know, will fall him down in dynasty rookie drafts. Absolutely. But for me, I've got no concerns. I think he's an elite route runner. I think he's an elite separator. He's got great hands. And look, when you can produce, when you're sharing the field, you're a year younger and you're sharing the field with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. You must be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you listen to those guys talk about him, and they're just like gushing, talking about Jackson Smith and Jig, but like, no, he's way better than us. And it's like these are like that's not anything from like an NFL athlete that like these guys are like prideful guys, right? They're always like, on top of their game and they want to be the best. For athletes like that to come out and be like, oh no, I'm nowhere near as good as that guy. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think they're part of it is them being a good teammate and talking him up, knowing that he's coming out this year. But I think, as you said, they don't talk that gushingly about someone if they don't believe it.
Yeah, so absolutely, it seems to be consensus wide receiver one then going off the board. So who's coming off at 107 for you then?
So at 107, this is probably not a shock, but it's Jordan Addison. I think if JSN runs slow, he's going to be the Dynasty wide receiver one. I think if you go into watching Jordan Addison, I've said this in my rookie guide. If you go into him in a bad mood, you can find stuff that you're not going to like. He's skinny, he's undersized, he struggles against more physical corners. He had an issue in his freshman year with drops. He's basically a complete nothing as a blocker. But if you go into him in a happy mood, he's, a natural route runner. I think he's probably the best, if not the second best route runner in this class. He can manipulate defenses with kind of setting up corners, subtle changes of pace to create separation. He stacks corners with absolute ease, which is not an easy skill. His body control both at the catch point enables him to play bigger than his frame. He is a smaller guy, but his contested catch numbers are through the roof. I think that he's to me. Now, I'm not a comp guy, but I watch him and I just see Deontay Johnson. I think he's a guy that is undersized, but he's going to be able to play outside. He's going to be a guy that can command 120 targets at the next level easily. And he's just really fun to watch. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think he's my two. Him and JSN could easily switch, and I've sort of got him in a tier of my own. So I've got Bijan at 1, I've got Young at 2, I've then got that tier of 4, and then it's Addison's kind of in a tier on his own, just sat there.
Yeah. I was sure you were going to say it's like if you watch him in a bad mood, it's like you'll be in a good mood by the time you finish watching him, right? Because he just, you're right. He is so smooth and like just does, like he just makes you smile with some of the things that he can do to like these other amazing athletes. Like this guy's just been made a mug. Like it's so good. Okay. Where are we now? 1-8. Let's see who we can get locked in at 1-8 then.
So what do I
off the board?
Let's just quarterback, super flex. It's the value's there. Don't particularly like the prospects, but Will Levis at this point, the value's too good. I think he's going to be a top 10. I think he's probably the only other player other than Bryce Young I could see going 101 in the NFL draft. I think size, arm strength, it's all there. It's just I've never seen him make a read. I've never seen him, he's the guy you talk about. There was, I can't remember who it was, so apologies, but there was a commentator years ago who would say there's 3 types of quarterbacks. There's the quarterback who can throw the ball through the keyhole, who can throw the ball through the eye of the keyhole, or can throw the ball through the door. And all of this is definitely a throw the ball through the door guy, because he can't hit a keyhole to save his life.
No.
But if you're looking for intangibles, if you're looking for, metrics in terms of height, weight, speed, arm strength, he's the guy. So at this point, you can't pass up on the quarterback value.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think as well. That's stage. It's like, there's a chance with him, and if a quarterback hits, you're laughing, right? So there's definitely worth a punt there. And he is a guy, right? Whenever I watch like his film, like, are you trying to like set some kind of record for like ball speed? Like he just launches it every time, like at full speed, and you're hoping that's something that they might try and coach out of him. It's like if you threw it at like 90% and like increased that, like the improvement in accuracy would be huge if he just took that little bit off it, I think. But we'll have to wait and see where he ends up. But yeah, definitely great value at 108. So we'll swing round then to 109, and who are you taking here?
So I think this is the guy he's probably been my guy for the last 2 years. I think he's basically where I see him in ADP and other people's rankings. I feel like I'm going to end up with a lot of shares of him, and it's Keishon Butte. Look, you don't. If you want to see an impressive performance, I think his tape versus Ole Miss in his rookie year is probably the most impressive game you can watch of any prospect, and that goes for Bijan Robinson in this draft.
Okay,
you know, as an 18-year-old freshman against a decent team in the SEC, what was it?
Yeah.
I think it was 10 catches, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, it's obscene.
Yeah.
I think he's an elite route runner. I think he's incredible with the ball in his hands. I think he's a very, very good athlete that can operate at all 3 levels of the field.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're saying is he was incredible as a freshman. He was amazing as a sophomore until he got injured. He was leading the country in touchdowns before he got injured. He then had a very weird offseason after his sophomore year where head coach got fired, new head coach comes in. I'm going to leave LSU. I'm going to stay LSU. I'm going to leave LSU. I'm going to stay with LSU. Yeah. He then has basically goes missing, didn't perform all year, in and out of the lineup for kind of injuries. He then has this, should we say, interesting off-field incident at the, I think it was the SEC Championship game. So yeah, look, there's some red flags about him. I wouldn't be shocked if the NFL knock him slightly. Look, I'm old school. I like a bit of diva in my receivers, and I think that he's a guy that he can do it all, and I've got no concerns about him as a player. So hopefully he can keep his head on right, and he could be a steal at this point.
Yeah, he's one I keep going between, I'm going to take him because it's an absolute steal, to there's too many red flags, I'm scared. And I'm not touching him. I keep going to the two, because you're right, he had that good freshman year when he came out, and then his second year, I think he's 9 touchdowns in 6 games or something like that, right? And then got injured. And then it's just been a bit, last year was just a bit okay, all right, but nothing to make you get excited about him. And obviously that's a lot of off-field stuff as well, right? And how much did he actually really want to be there? And I'm just, at the minute I'm seeing too many red flags, but next week I'm going to be no, I'm taking this guy. I can't figure him out.
No, it's exactly that.
Yeah, so he's there at 1-9, and then who's coming in at your 110?
110 is Josh Downs. Look, I think explosive, hyper productive. Yes, stop me if you've heard this before. Smaller frame, slightly skinny, but caught 72% of his contested catches last year. You normally see anything above 50% is impressive. 72% is outrageous. I think he's already an elite level NFL route runner. Really good agility, creates separation at the cut point, wins early and late in his routes. I think people are basically sleeping on him. And I think that if you're coming out late first, early second round with a Josh Downs in your rookie drafts, I think you're going to be very happy, because I think he's going to be productive in the NFL for years to come.
So with Josh Downs, I like everything you said. The only thing I can't quite put my finger on is his, and you'll probably know a lot better than me, his run after the catch. So a lot of the times I'll see he'll separate the catch all, and then just for, I don't know if it's the team he's playing against or the teammates he has around him, but I didn't see a lot of run after the catch with him. Is that something you'd be worried about with him at the next level, or am I just not watching the right games?
No, I think that's definitely there. I think that's probably a little bit scheme rather than necessarily him. I don't think he's incredible. He's not Keishon Butte with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
But where he was being utilized, he wasn't a downfield receiver that was going to pick up a lot of yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Because he was getting those downfield routes and was kind of open. He wasn't a 3-4 yards screen pass type, get the ball in his hands and let him go to work. He was operating in the middle of the field, and he was operating in that intermediate distance downfield. And that in that territory, it's hard. It's hard to get yards off the catch because there's a lot of defenders there. But I think he's a playmaker that is going to be able to get open. And to me, that works. And that's, I'm always, whenever I'm evaluating players, yes, I'm slightly analytically led and I'm going to lean on my models and things like that. But when I'm watching a receiver, the first thing I want to know is route run ability. Can he create separation? And Josh Downs can do that easily.
Yeah, love it. So Josh Downs in there at pick 10. Who's coming off the board then at pick 111?
So 111, I guess this is basically where there's a tough spot, because there's a receiver that I don't like that I think has fallen, and I'm sure people are screaming at how's he fallen this far? And then there's two running backs that I absolutely love, but I've got one fairly big concern about each of them. So so I'm going to go with Devon Achane as the running back.
Yes.
Look, if you can operate in the SEC as he has done and put up the stats that he has done, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But there's no getting away from the fact that he is small, he is skinny, and I don't know if he can carry the ball between tackles.
Yeah.
But there's rumors that he's going to run a 4.2 at the combine. There's rumors that he's potentially going to break the combine record. If that happens, he's probably going to be a second round pick. From a production model perspective, he's elite. You're talking best market share touchdowns. He was at 80%. Yards per team rush attempts, he's at 80%. 19-year-old breakout age. Best receiver market share, he's at 74%. Like, this is a guy that's like at 85 to 90% in my rookie model. He looks fantastic in terms of ticking all the boxes from an analytical profile. It's just a concern about, is he going to be limited to a role where he gets 5 to 10 carries and 3 or 4 targets in a game, or can he be a 10 carry, 8 target, approaching that 20 touches a game mark? I'm a little bit concerned that he's basically going after the combine record for the 40-yard dash, because I think I would have rather he'd have put on a few pounds and weighed in at 195 and run a 4.3 than weighed in at 180 and run a 4.2, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering, I don't know if this is, I didn't verify. I think Garrett Price, he was on last week. He was saying he has tried to put on a bit of weight and he should come in around like 200 pounds, which would be okay.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think he's going to be putting on weight, but when you're putting on weight, that slows down your 40. And there comes a point where if he's saying his sole purpose at the combine is to try and break the combine record, that to me says is that he's worrying about his speed rather than necessarily his weight. And as I said, I'd rather see him come in at 200 pounds, run a 4.3 than 185, 180 pounds and run like a 4.2. So it will be interesting. There's absolutely a world that he could put on some weight and still be able to run just as fast, but it's a question mark, and it's going to be really interesting to watch this weekend.
Absolutely. I can't wait. That's like the thing I'm looking forward to the most, actually, is watching him run that 40. I can't wait to see what happens. So he's in there, pick 11 of a first round. So who's going to wrap up the first round for you then?
So we're going Quinton Johnson. Look, he's fallen far lower than I'm sure most people expecting, far lower than ADP. I just don't see on film. I just don't see it. I think he can't create separation. I think he's not a natural route runner. Yes, he's big. Yes, he's fast. Yes, he's got impressive agility for a player his size. But all I saw watching him was impressive plays. And I've seen people show the 60-yard touchdown against Michigan in the national championship semi-final. But like, I hate to say this, 95% of players in college would make that play. He basically runs a drag route where the guy covering him is a safety lined up 15 yards deep. So he doesn't create any separation. He catches the ball. Okay, he makes one guy miss in the open field. and then he runs 50 yards down the sideline and no one catches him. Like it's not an impressive play, and people keep putting it on Twitter, and I keep seeing it on shows and saying that this is what he can do at the next level. It's not impressive. Like, yes, I think he's a really interesting freak athlete in terms of the size and speed, the agility for that size and speed.
Yes.
But this is a guy he had more drops last year than touchdowns.
Wow.
Like, I just don't see why people and where people are taking him over Josh Downs, Kayshon Boutte, Jordan Addison. I think that I feel like I talk about this every time I do a podcast, but it's the Calvin Johnson theory in terms of people chase Calvin Johnson because of the size, the speed, the athleticism, because he was so incredible for fantasy that he was a complete cheat code. And unfortunately, I think people obsess over, oh, he's big, he's fast, he's a prototypical X alpha, and they chase the wrong things. You know, I was 2 years ago, we were having this conversation about who would you rather, Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson, and the consensus was Chase Claypool by a mile. And people were like, he's an alpha, and it's like, no, he was big, he was fast, but he can't create separation, and that's the reason why Deontay Johnson, you know, the Steelers chose to keep him, the Steelers paid him, and it's the reason why he gets 120 targets a year, because he can get open for fun. And as I said earlier, that's the one attribute that I'm going to keep coming back to with wide receivers is, can you create separation? Because I think it's the thing that translates to the NFL better than anything. And yeah, I may be wrong on Quentin Johnson, but I have got serious concerns about him being able to create separation at the next level.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not a big Quentin Johnson guy at all, really. Just, I think you're right. If you're going to look for something, you need to look at like creating separation, because that's something that is, I think, easier to transfer to the NFL rather than, you know, being big, being strong, because you can kind of keep getting better at that skill, right? You can keep getting better at creating separation. But Quentin Johnson, he's not going to grow another 3 inches, right? He's there. So he can't really get better at what he's good at already, whereas the other guys can keep sharpening those tools over and over again. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, yeah.
Yeah. So we got Quentin Johnson. He's rounding out the first round. And who's going to start off round number 2 for you then?
So it's Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah.
Lots to like. I think he's got the best vision of any back in the class. I think he's a good athlete. I don't think he's a burner, but I think he's got enough speed. You know, you rarely see him get caught from behind. I think he, you know, good contact balance.
Yep.
Competent in the receiving game. You know, he's not an elite receiver. He at UCLA, we saw a lot of checkdowns. We saw a lot of screen passes, things like that. But natural hands catcher, runs a lot of routes. I think he is going to be a potential 3-down back.
Yeah.
I always want a little bit more. I don't think he's a guy that's going to create huge amounts on his own. He's kind of a take what's blocked for him kind of back. But when you've got the vision that he has, you know, he gets what's being blocked for him 9 times out of 10, which is, you know, that's got value at the next level.
Yeah, I really like Zach Charbonnet just because what you said, like he does have that potential to be that 3-down back, and I mean, unlikely he's going to get drafted and immediately be the guy in any NFL team, just the way things are being schemed and the way things are running right now. But, you know, if he goes somewhere and there's an injury, which, you know, there always is an injury, I think a team would be happy with Zach Charbonnet just being like a bit of a bell cow back for them. He can kind of do that role in a way that, you know, Devon Achane, who we took earlier, he can't really do that. He doesn't have the build for it, but Zach Charbonnet definitely does. And he could end up, you know, I think he's a better prospect than Dameon Pierce, but he can end up being like a Dameon Pierce role where he just ends up with this amazing opportunity. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I like Zach Charbonnet there at 2-1. And who's coming in then at 2-2?
So Michael Mayer, look, if it was tight and premium, you'd probably sneak into that back end of that first round. But
yeah,
look, if you were going to build a prototypical wide tight end in a lab, I think it's him pretty much.
Yeah.
This is a guy that had a 30% targets per route run rate at Notre Dame. Like he's fantastic. He's got very few question marks. The only question mark I've got is I think he's a good athlete. I don't know if he's an
Yeah.
elite athlete. I think it's going to be a very important couple of days for him at the combine.
Yeah.
I've got him as my tight end one. I know a lot of people are getting hyped up and excited about a potential other tight end that we might mention later.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I've got Michael Mayer here is that I think as a rookie, he steps on the field and he can be on the field 100% of the time. He is a good enough blocker. He is a good enough receiver, route runner that he doesn't have to come off the field. And I think that you're looking for a rookie at a position that doesn't traditionally hit early. This is a guy that could potentially do that. And I think, whether you're a draft and you spin him off for a profit or whether you're a draft and you keep him, but this is a guy that I think is unlikely to bust and is probably going to be worth more in a year's time than he is whatever you've spent to draft him and acquire him.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me in that sense of like whenever Pat Fryermuth come out, right? It's just like, this guy's going to play and he's going to be good and he's going to do just fine for you, right? He's not going to disappoint anyone. He might not be, cracking into that, elite tier of tight ends like where Kelsey and Andrews play, but he's definitely going to do a really good job for you.
Yeah.
Definitely. So let's get Michael Mayer locked in then, and I'll move on to pick 2, 3 in the second round. So who we taking here?
So it's gonna be Sean Tucker. Look, the guy's just fast. Okay, we talked about Devin Chain maybe breaking the 40. This guy is gonna have a sneaky, incredible 40. 100-meter champion high school, 200-meter champion high school. He's got incredible agility. His jump cut is fantastic. His vision is not good. I have serious questions. He misses some open rushing lanes. I don't think I saw him make a cutback basically at all in college. He does like to bounce the ball to the outside. Too often. I have some slight questions about his receiving ability. He's not a natural hands catcher. He tries to kind of cradle the ball, use his body too much. But look, this is a guy that I think walks into the NFL as a, I know everybody gets obsessed with the Shanahan scheme and things like that. But if he can be a 3rd, 4th round pick and end up, whether it be, Miami or somewhere like that runs the Shanahan scheme, he could be an absolute steal. Because I think that one cut ability and that top end speed is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of these guys is going to go to Miami probably, right? Or that scheme, and they're going to rock it up aboard as well, just because of how amazing the running back does in that scheme. And Tucker's a guy I really like. You're right. You just watch him, you're like, geez, like he's quick. But my big question mark with him is for whatever reason, more than watching like a Charbonnet, I'm like, is he just a really good college player? I'm like, is that definitely going to like translate over to the NFL? Because you're right. He kept trying to do that same trick of running to the outside, get to the corner on the outside, like, and try and just almost get right to the pylon every time. And I'm like, is that, you're right. The combine's going to be interesting because, like, are you going to be fast enough to do that in the NFL? It's like, maybe, but don't really know until you see a run. Yeah,
the other thing to mention with Sean Tucker is he's an absolute kind of model superstar. Young breakout age, 92% best receiving market share, 81.5% yards per team rush attempt, 96% best market share touchdowns. Like he was the Syracuse offense. So I think he from an analytical profile is very much up there. The big question mark is just draft capital. If he's going to be a 4th round pick, I don't think you can take him earlier than the early 2nd.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And actually, just very quick tangent actually while I'm on the 40. Our friend Paul Picken had a good idea, believe it or not. He was saying he wishes everybody would run the 40 in their full like uniform, full pads, helmet, the whole lot. I'm like, I kind of like that because that kind of lets you know how fast they are with everything on, right?
Yeah, I mean it's just the way it's been done, isn't it? So the reason. Yeah. So here's a question for you, Mags, to flip host chair around. Do you know why they run 40 yards?
I have no idea. Why is it 40? Yeah.
So the reason is the guys that created the idea of the combine So the 40 yards is supposed to be the maximum distance you will ever run in a straight line on the NFL field. And the reason is that back in like the 50s and 60s when they created the combine, that was the average distance that a gunner would run on a punt. So that was why a 40-yard dash was created. And but it shows how like stupid it is that we're running 40 yards because, you know, when does a player ever run 40 yards in a straight line?
Yeah.
We all obsess about it. You know, we've talked about it 3-4 times so far on this show. Like, it's ridiculous.
So much I had to have a tangent. Yeah. That's a really good point. I've never actually thought about that at all. So
I think as well, part of the reason they don't run in pads is that part of the combine is about not just looking at how fast they are, it's how they move. And if you're wearing, you know, full pads, if you're wearing shoulders and helmets and things like that, you're not able to see that, you know, the shoulder mobility. You're not able to see how fluid the hips are as much as when they're in, you know, essentially underwear.
Yeah, exactly. No, okay. So maybe the world is okay and Paul didn't actually have a good idea then. Maybe the world is still fine. Yeah. Let's move on to pick 2-4 then. I love you really, Paul. I know you're probably listening. 2-4. Who have you got then at 2-4?
So Zay Flowers is going here. There's potential that some of the rumors are that he's basically a nailed on first round pick. Now, if that's the case, he's going to jump into the first round of rookie drafts. I really like him. I think he's a fantastic route runner. We talked about top 2 in the class. I think Zay Flowers is probably that other one. I think he does a lot of things well. You know, he changes his tempo, the subtle body fakes, the setting up defenders, the stacking corners. He's got good hands, good athlete overall. I just want to see that one elite thing. And because of the smaller frame, again, stop me if you've heard this before with receivers in this class. Right? I think we're, you know, there's going to be people that suggest he's a slot only. And I think that if he's a slot only that, you know, gets manufactured some touches, whether it be on sweeps, on screens, gets the ball in his hands, then I think he could be okay. Where he needs to be a kind of a fantasy superstar is he needs to be an all-round wide receiver and not just a gadget slot type.
Yeah, there is definitely that danger there with like, just he's really like just quick, isn't he? Not like he's fast, but he's like seems like quicker than he is fast, and that's kind of an old saying. But absolutely. He's like really like zippy, right? And I love watching him play. I think he'd be a really good player for an NFL team, but whether that, you know, translates into fantasy points, we'll have to wait and see. It's kind of maybe going to go one way or the other with him, right? He's either going to be like this, like the way Debo's used almost, right? When he kind of get the ball in his hands and hope for the best, or the way LaVisca Chenault is used, right? It's going to be maybe one way or the other.
Yeah, no, exactly that.
Yeah. So yeah, I love Zay Flowers. So yeah, you're right. I think he'll move up if he's get taken in the first round. So who we going then at 2-5?
So at 2-5, we're going Tyjae Spears. I think if you just watched highlights of prospects, I think you'd probably have Tyjae Spears somewhere in your first round. Like, he is an absolute freak of an athlete. He is so dynamic. He is fast. He is quick. You know, get the ball in his hands, he can score from anywhere.
Yeah.
But the problem is that that's not the case all the time. I think he reads blocks well, and he's got solid contact balance.
Yeah.
But he's not going to run over bigger defenders. He's not going to be a guy that falls forward at the tackle point.
Yes.
And then you come to the receiving game where it's basically non-existent. You know, he saw 28 targets in his final year, but that came, it was 13.9% targets per route run rate. And that was he had a minus 0.8 average depth of target. Like, he got some targets in his final year, but it was, you know, it was Derrick Henry level targets. It was screens, it was dump offs. He wasn't being used as a weapon. And I worry, undersized, electric, but can only play on 1 and 2 downs. Those kind of guys don't tend to stick around. I think if he goes away and he comes back, whether it be at the combine, at the pro day, and maybe he's a guy that could break out in his second year once he's had a year in the NFL. But he needs to be a third down back that can step into a larger role. And at the moment, I don't think he's got the receiving acumen to be that.
Yeah, and I have to say, I apologize. It was Tajay Spears that Garrett Price was talking about, not Devon Etienne. So it's Spears that he said is bulked up to over 200 pounds, not Devon Etienne. So yeah.
That's so interesting because
that's good, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the mystical 200 pounds from running back that gets thrown around. I'm not a believer in it. I'm happy that I think elite prospects can be 190 pounds if they're elite. I worry whenever a player is putting on weight, is it going to affect their speed? And Tajay Spears, we said he's electric, his agility is incredible. Once you start packing on the pounds, does that affect it? It's all about whether he can carry the speed with that extra weight.
It's so weird for a guy that is so electric. It's like, why are they just throwing the ball? Like, why?
Well, I don't think he's a good enough route runner. I don't think he's a good enough hands catcher. That he it's like Derrick Henry. You watch him when they try and get the ball to him, it is the most basic of you're going to run and stand over there, and we're basically going to try and underarm it to you to get it to you in space. And I'm being a bit harsh on Derrick Henry. I'm probably being a bit harsh on Tajay Spears, but it's not far off that because he is not a natural hands catcher. And it's a shame because he could be an incredible 3 down back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens to Spears, but definitely an interesting guy to look out for. So who's going then right after him at 2-6?
So I'm going Marvin Mims. Look, I can't get my head around. I seem to be so much higher on him than everybody else. Everybody's talking about him in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
I would probably take him a few picks earlier, but I know that I can take him here and get value basically. Yes, he's another undersized guy. We're talking 5'11", 170 pounds, something like that. But he is fast. He is agile. He is a great route runner. He can create separation at will. He's not one of these undersized guys that, has to get the ball in his hands. He's a good downfield threat. You're talking ADOT over 15 yards every single year of career, averaged over 20 yards per reception in his final year.
Wow.
I really like him. I think his size will translate okay. He didn't struggle physically in college. I think he's got the potential to be under the radar and, a really interesting number 2 receiver. He's never going to be a high volume number 1, but he's the kind of guy, particularly for, in best ball, things like that. He could easily catch 3-4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. And he could win you weeks. And I really like the profile. I really like the prospects. I get a little bit of the Tutu Atwell vibes. He's a little bit bigger than Atwell, but I do get that small, undersized, deep threat. And those are the guys that I kind of can't quit. Whether it be KJ Hamler, whether it be Tutu Atwell, I like them all coming out. I'm hoping Marvin Mims isn't that. He's a bit bigger. I think he's got a bit more to his game in terms of route run ability. But I really like him. I can't quite work out why I'm so much higher than everyone else on him, it seems.
Yeah, especially he had quietly kind of had over 1,000 yards last year as well. Good solid numbers. It just seems whenever I watch him into this, this guy's a good player, right? He can't really go oh, he does that really badly or that really badly. It's nice. He seems like a really solid, good player. So you just hope that he gets an opportunity somewhere really, so he can showcase that. So hopefully he ends up somewhere good for him. But I'm not mad at Mims there at 2-6. So who's coming in then at 2-7?
So we're going back to the tight end. Dalton Kincaid, I think.
Yep.
The best receiving tight end in the class. I think he's a fantastic route runner. Ex basketball player. We know we like those. They translate well to the tight end position. I'm a little bit concerned. I think he's basically an F. I don't think he can line up in line. I think it's going to be, does he add enough value in the receiving game that he's potentially Mike Gesicki 2 years ago, not Mike Gesicki this last year? And I think that's the problem. Yeah, is that he's going to be a guy that's probably going to need to run out the slot 60, 70, 80% of the time. He's not going to be able to line up and, block defensive ends on the backside of run plays and things like that. That's not his game. So the team that drafts him, I hope they've got a plan. I hope that he's basically a big slot and not asked to go and be a tight end, because that could really affect him. But there's a lot to like, and probably the best hands of anyone in this class. I don't think I saw him drop a ball at all in any of the games I watched, and it's really, really impressive hands.
Yeah, he had I got the stat for that. I think he had nearly 100 targets and dropped the ball twice. All that is unbelievable, and you just kind of wonder. See for guys like that on like Sleeper or MFL or whatever. So when are we going to start actually just taking the tight end label away from them? Like Mike Gesicki played 90+% like of his snaps from the slot. Like that guy's not a tight end. Like he's a receiver.
Yeah, I mean it was ridiculous. I mean Dalton Kincaid's a better blocker than Mike Gesicki. He will at least line up there occasionally, but Mike Gesicki, the fact he was labelled a tight end is obscene, because he was like 90% of reach run out of the slot. He can't block. Like he's just a big slot. Let's call him what he is. He's Mike Gesicki is essentially Brandon Marshall when he was on the Jets.
Boy, I was wondering when you were going to bring up the Jets, Rich. We've got an hour in, and the Jets have finally come up.
Got to get mentioned at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dalton Kincaid. Really like Dalton Kincaid, and he's the kind of guy that he's going to go somewhere, and they're not probably going to ask him to block too much. The people know who Dalton Kincaid is, so hopefully he'll get a couple of nice receptions in his first year and work his way up from there. So we'll lock him in at 2.7, and who's coming in then at 2.8?
So next we're going Jalen Hyatt. I've seen the hype on him be obscene. I've seen him go 105, 106 in some of the mocks I've done recently. It's obscene. I think, he was unbelievable this year. Talking 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns.
Yeah,
won the Belentikov Award. Like incredible year. But this is a guy that broke out in his third year in college. He's 6 foot, 175 pounds, and he's basically a one-trick wonder. I think he's going to be useful from an NFL perspective, but I don't know how well that's going to translate to fantasy. I think he's fast. He's that deep threat. Teams are going to have to shade a safety over the top of him, which has got huge amounts of value in the NFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's going to have much value from a fantasy perspective. And I worry at that size, I think teams are going to be able to, get up in his face and press him. And I don't think he's got the release package to take hold. So, at this point, why not? Why not take a flyer on him? There's potential that he could work out, but there's no way I'm spending a first round pick on him.
Yeah, you could be in danger of getting what's that guy's name? Jalen Guyton, right? The guy that just runs the length of the field for the Chargers every week. You run there as fast as you can. You might get the ball once or twice, but not very often.
No, that's a really nice comp for him. I quite like that.
Yeah, but hopefully he does a wee bit better than Jalen Guyton does. So let's move past Hyatt and go on to 2.9. Who's getting picked here? 2.9.
Again, might surprise a few people. I'm going Deuce Vaughn.
Okay.
A guy that the model loves. Really, really impressive college career. Obviously at Kansas State. Really, really good numbers. A true 3-down back, can do everything, useful in the receiving game, create separation through good route running, natural change of pace to set up defenders, really impressive contact balance. He's a bowling ball of physicality.
Yeah.
Like everything about him. The problem is that he's 5'6", 170 pounds.
So small.
And he is small, and I worry that he's basically going to be limited to a complementary back at the next level. But look, if we're betting on things at this point in the draft, I'm betting on production. I'm betting on a guy that has got traits that will translate and has got the potential upside. Have players succeeded at 5'6", 180 pounds in the NFL? 100% they have. Have they failed? Yeah. But let's take a shot on a guy that's produced to an extreme level in college and could be a 3-down back. So yeah, I'm happy to take him here. As I said, the model loves him, so let's take the flyer.
Yeah, he was a guy like 5. I was like, how small? Because I remember when Jared Patterson came out, everyone made fun of him because he was like small. Right? It's like he's like 2 inches taller than Deuce Vaughn. So it's like, I remember people are going to tease Deuce Vaughn about that, right? But yeah, you're right. He is like a bowling ball. You're right. He's another guy that's just, this class is just filled with people that I just really like watching. Right? There's a lot of fun players to watch, and Deuce Vaughn's definitely one of those guys. And yeah, I think he'll definitely be there in the second round when it comes round to it. So he's an interesting guy to go and grab.
I mean, there's some natural kind of like Ray Rice comps. You know, Ray Rice, I think was like I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm probably getting it wrong, but I think he was like 5'7", 190. Like Deuce Vaughn could easily weigh in at a similar number at the combine.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, he is short, he is smaller, but he's not lacking the mass. It's just the height, basically. That's the issue.
Yeah, and maybe you can find a way to use that to his advantage, because the NFL, you're right, isn't full of 5'6" players, and that could be an advantage. Like, use that. Like, people aren't used to tackling people that far down low. Like, your pad height's going to be perfect. Like,
yeah, there's definitely times you watch his film. There's definitely times where he's able to, you know, jump cut into a different lane and linebackers lose him behind the offensive line. It happens time and time again. You know, it's probably not a skill that you want to rely on, but it does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got 3 picks left. Then who's coming in at pick number 10 of the second round?
So pick 10, we're going Cedric Tillman. I don't love contested catch receivers. I've banged on about route running time and time again. But if you want a big-bodied outside receiver that specializes in contested catches, that, you know, Tillman's there. He excels at the catch point. He's got good size, good speed. He's got kind of decent wiggle. He is a long strider, so I think his route tree is limited by that fact. He's older, you know, 5 years in college. He's going to be 23 by the time he gets in the NFL field.
Yeah,
there's some things to love, but yeah, I'm slightly concerned that he's kind of a bit boom bust, and at this point, I basically don't like taking wide receivers, but he's about one of the last one or two that I take in this round.
Yeah, and he was injured last year for a lot of the year, right? Well, I can't remember what injury he ended up getting, but
I mean, he's basically battled injuries his entire college career. It was only 2021 he played 12 games, but other than that, he never played. He was never on the field for more than 6 games. So he's been often injured and not around very much.
Yeah. So, well, he could end up doing something though. You're right. You're just shooting for upside at this stage as well, right? The back end of the second. So there's definitely some upside there with Tillman. So who's going to be the penultimate pick then of round number 2?
So penultimate pick, we're going to go back to the running back. Zach Evans, really not a model guy. Performed pretty awfully in that aspect, but you know, I described him when we were doing the rookie previews as good but not great at everything, and that pretty much is him. He's just okay. I just constantly want more. But you know, 5-star recruit. We know the NFL loves stuff like that. I think he's going to get drafted probably on day 2. So yeah, at some point you can't kind of pass up that level of draft capital and value.
My thing with Evans is he kind of struggled to hold down a college starting place, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the issue with the model, is that he doesn't have great stats. Yeah,
so he got pushed out by, was it KJ Miller kind of pushed him out? And then Judkins as well this year kind of kept him, you know, a bit quieter. That would be my main concern, is he ends up on a team and actually he just gets pushed out again. Like maybe it's just not enough there. But again, at this point, you know, he's probably going to be gone at this point, I would say, in most drafts. And I'm maybe happy to take him here, but I don't want to take him much higher than here, actually. Yeah, so I think you're about right with that. And who's rounding off the draft then at pick 212?
So we're going to go Tank Bigsby. Again, probably another one that might have already be off the board by this point in the draft. But look, anytime you can get first team SEC honors as a freshman, I'm going to listen. Really natural runner, impressive build, decent vision, decent kind of contact balance. He does have a tendency to dance a little bit and slow his feet behind the line of scrimmage, which causes some concerns because, yes, okay, left Bell was able to make a career out of that, but not many backs do, particularly a guy like him that's a bigger, more physical runner. I think I'd rather see him pick up speed and get going. Limited in the passing game, and that's probably why I'm lower than consensus on him, because I think he profiles as a safe, solid, 2-down back that's probably never going to see more than like 20, 30 targets even if he was the lead back in an offense.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. That's the one thing that really stands out to me is this guy just doesn't stop like moving, juking, and ducking and dive. Like he's always like moving about, which I quite like. But I mean, if you're not careful, you're going to fumble the ball doing that in the NFL as well. So you kind of want to be a bit careful with that, I'd say, for Tank. But I think that's a great, if you got Tank Bigsby at 212, you're absolutely dancing. Like that is that great value there. So yeah, I think he's a really solid pick. And that brings us to the end of our 2-round draft. But we'll just maybe have a few names from you, Rich, that you think these are guys that maybe people are sleeping on and people might end up seeing them drop to the 3rd or 4th rounds that you should be picking up. Is there any names that you want to shout out just before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chase Brown at Illinois, he's got the potential to be really good. Eric Gray has got some concerns. There's some flaws in his game, basically, but really interesting profile, decent receiving work. And then receiver Rashee Rice, again, could be a really interesting prospect. Those are probably 3 guys that I'm looking to target. That early 3rd round, I think, could have some good value.
Yeah, absolutely. Those names keep coming up. Actually, I think a lot of time I ask people about sleepers, and those guys keep coming up. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled for them coming in. And that's it. That is the end of our 2023 rookie mock draft. We've gone for well over an hour. Thank you so much, Rich. That was absolutely brilliant. Could you just want to remind everybody where can they find you online and what are you up to these days then before we go?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed talking rookies, as you could probably tell. I could talk all day about them. You can find me. I'm on Twitter at Dynasty Island. You mentioned the YouTube work. Tom and I have launched a YouTube channel. That's the Fantasy Sanctuary or the FF Sanctuary on YouTube and Twitter. You can find all my written work over at DLF. And then, Rookie Guide version 2.0 will be released on the 10th of March. You can buy a copy over at patreon.com/Dynasty Island.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, if you've not checked it out, Rich and Tom do an absolutely amazing job over at the Fantasy Sanctuary. Make sure you are subscribed up to that. And hey, if you're going to do that, why not subscribe here as well? If you made it this far in the video, right, definitely hit the thumbs up and the subscribe as well. That'll be absolutely brilliant. And Rich, just want to say thank you so much for coming on again. Great talking to you as always. And guys, as always, thank you so much for listening. Remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked in the Certified Inferno. And we'll see you next time.